You're listening to the Weekly Wrap-Up on Sprott Money News.
Greetings once again from Sprott Money News and SprottMoney.com. It's Friday, February the 21st, 2020, and it's time for your Weekly Wrap-Up. I'm your host, Craig Hemke, and joining us this morning is a slightly under-the-weather Eric Sprott. Eric, good morning.
Hey, Craig, good morning. What a hairy kind of week we've had here, both on the market front, the gold front, the medical front. There's a lot of chaos going on.
A lot of chaos going on, reflected in the gold price, reflected in the bond market, reflected in the mining shares finally as well. Hey, and before we get started, we mentioned this last week. I know a lot of folks are going to be headed to the PDAC conference in Toronto. That's coming up in only about 7 or 8 days. Sprott Money is going to be hosting a warm-up event. I like the way that's phrased. A warm-up event on Saturday night, the 29th, from 6 to 8 at a place called the Pravda Vodka Bar. If that, warm your cockles at least, right? You can add your name to the guest list and come to the Pravda Vodka Bar on us by emailing us at submissions@sprottmoney.com. Obviously, this event is filling up fast, so do not mess around. Submissions@sprottmoney.com if you want to join us. 6 to 8. Saturday, February the 29th. All right, Eric, we are cooking. As we speak, gold is up $62 on the week, something like $16.45, making new all-time highs in all these currencies, including the euro. Silver participating as well. Bond market soaring. A lot of this due to the economic slowdown and global impact of the coronavirus. You've been warning us about this now for about a month. What are your thoughts this week?
Okay. Well, first of all, it's all about the mathematics, right? And the first problem we had with mathematics that showed the vulnerability of the world's economies was when the Chinese cases exploded and the deaths exploded, and they exceeded SARS in like no time. And one of the things we don't know yet is, is it really under control there? Are we just getting phony numbers? And of course, sometimes they say it goes up by 14,000 a day, and then they say it doesn't go up at all, and we're kind of losing it. But we have examples other than China, and the first one, of course, was the Diamond Princess cruise ship, where it just exploded. And you think, how could it explode that fast? That's crazy. Then, middle of this week, we got South Korea, where all of a sudden they were reporting 50 extra cases a day. And it was obvious that in a tight environment, if somebody has it, it just blows out. We also have seen that today in new information on Chinese prisons. I mean, the thought of what could happen in a prison when everyone's eating in the same room, I mean, it just boggles my mind how bad it is. There's confined spaces when someone has the disease. And, of course, do you dare go back to work if you're in China? Would you want all these people come in the same room and all work together? I mean, there's a lot we don't know about this, but there's also a lot to worry about. We have too many examples of rampant, exponential increases in cases, so it's very, very worrying.
It certainly is, and that's being reflected, like I said, around the world. I mean, you see gold going up, but gold's going up for a reason. Obviously, there's concerns, safe haven trade, all that stuff, but also this big move in interest rates downward, going to put a lot of pressure on the Fed as well. You can kind of see where this is headed at this point.
Well, of course, the big concern, if you're an investor, you own bonds and you own stocks and you don't own gold for the most part, okay? So you got to ask yourself, well, what could possibly hold its value? And I think one of the obvious ones is gold and silver for that matter. So it takes this little minute change in the number of people wanting to invest in gold, very, very, very minute, where all of a sudden things go crazy. And you and I, of course, we both look at the Commitment of Traders reports. We had some incredible increases in the commercial short position in the last week. They're losing $1 billion today.
Yeah.
They're probably down $10 billion. And it just gets worse. And of course, because they've always had to be the sellers, they continue to sell, and their short positions continue to get bigger. And yet they probably should be buying, They're locked. They can't buy. Imagine if the big seller has to become the buyer. what happens? Do we get a palladium here?
Right.
Where all of a sudden everyone has to go the opposite way. And I wouldn't be at all surprised to see that happen here. It's exploding. I mean, you sit and watch the television networks, and you got some guy from Houston say, I like the gold stocks here, and some other guy, what the hell? All these people now focusing on these things, and of course you see the technical rampage that gold and silver are on, and the stocks are on, and you can't help but get forced into the tsunami of interest, and it doesn't take much increase in interest for the prices to go crazy.
Yeah, we're seeing the shares move up smartly this week across the board, and obviously with their primary products going up in price, earnings are expanding. Everything looks pretty good. We did have I guess call it a frustrating reaction to the earnings report of Kirkland Lake yesterday, and I know a lot of folks want to hear from you on that.
Sure.
There was a lot of good news. They increased the dividend by 50%. The earnings are record highs. They announced a massive buyback of their common stock. But there was, I guess, some worry about reserves and grades going down. I don't know, Eric. I look at that too, but I see, the company might make $5 a share this year, so it's trading at a PE of 7.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on it? Because I know people are dying to hear from you.
Here's what I'd say about that. Well, first of all, we have known, when I was the chairman of Kirkland Lake Gold, we have to find another swan zone in Fosterville. And based on what we saw in the revised reserve estimates, there was, not only did we not find any, but the grade went down of what we had. Why? I have no idea, okay? It's a very complicated subject. I don't know why the grade was a little lower in the swan zone, but it was lower. And pretty well every ounce that we produced this year in Fosterville was an ounce that came out of reserves. So we almost had no positive impact. I think they actually picked up 200,000 ounces of kind of mid-grade reserves. But when you're, producing reserves that have 40 grams and you're finding reserves with 5 grams, the profitability of those things would be vastly different. Now, I have not heard the transcript of the conference call. I don't know what they've said about, future Fosterville opportunities. I know they're spending a lot of money, but I haven't had a chance to get into the conference call and find out all the details. So that was, to me, that's the biggest problem, the swan zone, that maybe only got 2.5 more years of certainty there, and then you got to go find something. So that's of concern. The positives are, hey, we ended up buying Detour, and the price of gold's up $200 an ounce. Well, that can't hurt when you're producing 600,000 ounces. That you're making an extra $120 million you weren't expecting to make. And plus, I think there's lots of opportunity at Detour in terms of getting the cost down, getting the production up. But we gotta, you gotta start working on it. We only owned it for less than a month here, so. But that's positive. The earnings were okay. The dividend was great. The buyback's fine. But we need to find something to stem the decline in production from Fosterville 2.5 years from now. So we'll have to stand by on that.
But could you summarize it? I've seen this on Twitter and places like that, Eric. Could you summarize it as this is Kirkland Lake going from a transition from a low-cost producer that's really on the rise to now? I mean, it kind of sounds a lot like a Newmont or a Gold Corp or any of the other big ones.
Well, when you have a swan zone, I mean, your costs are almost nothing. I think their costs got as low as like $120 an ounce or something. Most everybody's costs, cash costs, are like $600. And if there was no swan zone, I'm sure the cash costs at Kirkland would be in those ranges as well. Swan/Foster was very unusual. I do believe there's lots of hope there. I mean, the companies all around the Fosterville area are kind of exploring down there and finding interesting things, and I think Kirkland has to find a way. They've had a real shamazo getting a ramp in the right place to drill the swan zone, and the Harrier, the delay is hurting them, and they got to do something about it in terms of getting access to the proper drilling stations, and let's prove up that there's likely to be another swan there.
Yeah. And this buyback program, is that, I don't know, in your experience, is that helpful? I mean, they issued a lot of stock to buy Detour, and now they're buying some back.
Yeah. And it's a big program. I think it's like 20 million ounces. So you're talking about
shares.
Sheesh, 20 million shares, yeah. So you're talking about $900 million that would be spent over the next 2 years. I mean, that's certainly all of their cash resources. Now, mind you, this company is going to be rolling in cash here with Detour in there, and the price where it is, they're going to be rolling in cash flow here. It's just that the market always wants to know that it's going to continue in the future.
Yeah.
And yes, we have Macassa's doing better. We have probably Detour will do better, but the jury's out on Fosterville now, 2.5 years hence, and I can't tell you the answer, but they better start finding something.
All right, so that's the big question mark. All right, thank you for that. That helps provide some clarity. We want to get into some of the names that have been sent to us. We get names every week. You can always send them to us at submissions@sprottmoney.com. And we have 4 or 5 this week. I think I'll mention one of the companies we get asked about often, Eric, is First Mining Gold Corp. It's one that people have held for several years now. And I know that's not one you know much about, and so we never talk about it. But I will, kind of as a public service announcement, I spoke yesterday to a guy by the name of Dan Wilton, who's the CEO of First Mining Gold. So if anyone wants to know more about that company, because it was a rather insightful interview, I'm actually going to post that at my TF Metals Report site this afternoon. Free audio. Good. Anybody can show up and listen. So if you want to know more about First Mining Gold Corp, stop by tfmetalsreport.com Friday or over the weekend and give it a listen. So just for everyone that keeps asking about that each week, I thought I'd put that in there. One of the names that came up this week was Exelon. Yeah, would you have anything to say there? They've got some good drill results.
Sure. Yeah. Well, Craig, first of all, on First Mining, I'm a shareholder, and I bought it based on, I've seen Keith Neumeyer do this before where he's buying when everyone's selling, and this company came along, First Mining, and bought all sorts of ore bodies when no one was buying them. And, of course, with the price of gold having gone from $1,300 10 months ago to $1,640 today, those ore bodies are all undoubtedly very economic. So the opportunity there changes dramatically by the day. Now, but I'm not intimate with each of the properties, therefore I don't really want to comment on it. But there's got to be, I've always said, you go and buy these exploration companies where nobody gives a darn because the price of gold's $1,200 or $1,300. Next thing you know, it's $1,600, and the guy's net asset value triples. So that's what you got to be looking for.
Yep. Exelon had great drill results, but the stock went down. Hey, that sounds familiar.
Yeah. They had good drill results. One thing about Exelon, they also produce lead and zinc. And, lead and zinc in this environment that we're looking at, the potential environment, the economic environment, it's hard to imagine those things holding together here. And in fact, as you can imagine, it's hard to imagine anything holding together here. If it just the coronavirus gets out of control, man, it's going to be really tough on everybody. These supply lines are not working, and all kinds of logistical issues that the world might face here. And I know Exelon has a very interesting property in Germany that they're doing a lot of work on. I'm a big shareholder. I like the guys running it, but one or two drill holes doesn't always do things for you. You've got to be able to connect them together, and they're I would say they're struggling along. We don't make any money yet, although I guess maybe with prices starting with silver's been such a laggard here. I mean, silver could be so much higher, and it would be great for Exelon, and I do hope and expect that should happen here as the year progresses.
How about something called Newfound Gold Corp?
Well, that's funny you would ask about that, or somebody would ask about that this week, because they announced that they weren't going ahead with the merger with a company called Mex Gold. I'm a big shareholder of Newfound Gold. It's a private company. In a big drill hole, I think it was 90 grams over 19 meters, something like that, a gigantic hole. And there was some disputes, including me, with the management thinking of merging with Mex Gold. Thankfully, that was pulled away. I'm a very big shareholder. Rob McEwen's a big shareholder. And the existing management are big shareholders. And I think there's an opportunity here, but it's not in the public domain yet, so there's no way for anyone to participate. But it's well worth watching, because it could be that this discovery could be very significant, and it's in Newfoundland.
So somebody else might go after them if this other merger didn't go through. That'd be worth watching, I suppose.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, and just to follow up, someone was asking about DeGray, which is a company down in the Pilbara region, if I remember right. We talked about it last year, and we discussed it on the 7th, said we'd revisit on the 14th. I asked you, though, said you still haven't had a chance to look at it, so maybe next week.
Yeah. It's funny. Well, there's so many things going on, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, between the coronavirus, I think I said last week, like you spend 2 or 3 hours a day just studying the coronavirus. And then, Kirkland's earnings come out and you got, 150 pages of stuff to read. And there's only so much time in a day, and all these other companies are reporting at the same time and drill results. Right. So anyway, I apologize to the questioner about DeGray, and Craig will remind me to review it before the call next week.
I will. All right. Excuse me, 2 more. Cisco Royalties. You've had some luck with some royalty companies lately.
Okay. Yeah, Cisco Royalties. Okay. Well, I'm sort of familiar with the Cisco Royalties. I thought you were going to ask about the Cisco Mining.
Oh, but, sorry.
The royalties business is a great business. Of course, the price of gold's going up here. Every royalty is going up exponentially as the price of gold goes up here. It makes the odds of finding more precious metals in wherever you are go up, because you can afford to process lower grade ore when the price is $16.40 than you can when the price is $13.40. So that's a great thing for a royalty company, because you're getting higher compensation on more ounces of gold. I'm not really a student of the Cisco Royalties per se, but I know that they've done some great deals, and then all these companies get great value. But I can't tell you whether I think it's under or overvalued versus something else, because I'm not a student of it.
All right. And then finally, a company that we've discussed before called Jaguar. And I'd say that's kind of emblematic of a lot of opportunities that are out there these days.
It is. I mean, I'm looking at some of these producers that I get involved with, including Jaguar. And my God, the price of gold in Brazilian, I think it's Cruzeiros, is probably up 45% in the last 12 months. And what a wonderful thing to have happen to you, that you produce 80,000 ounces of gold, which would give you 120 million of U.S. revenue. But because we're in Brazil, their margins would have gone up massively, because their costs are in Brazilian currency and the sales are in U.S. currency. So I'm sure it's doing very well. We had an update on some of the drilling and exploration recently. Looks good. We're still hoping that, they'll do well north of 80,000 ounces this year. And anybody can do the math here. You add $300 to the guy doing 80,000 ounces. You got 24 million more U.S. That's 30 million more Canadian. And maybe the market cap's 150 million, but you got 30 million more pre-tax earnings. I see it in, for example, Grand Columbia. They had 240,000 ounces of production. All of a sudden, in the last, month, the price of gold's up $150. Wow. Yeah. They had to be cheap. I think, for example, Grand Columbia might be trading at 2 times cash flow. So that's what the opportunity is.
Yeah, and those opportunities are abounding. We've seen all these great earnings reports for the producers over the last couple of weeks. And those fourth quarter numbers are all based off of a gold price that's, $150 less than what it is now?
Yeah, about 160. But most of them came in at 1480, and it's currently, $1,640? It's almost $160. It's all profit. That's the important thing about that. Yeah. Change in price of gold. It's all profit.
Yeah. Before we go, Eric, anything else? Anything else on your mind this week that you want to cover before we wrap up?
I don't think so. I'll continue to most of the earnings. Most earnings are out now. The big company, and quite frankly, Craig, some of the big companies have not done well. Okay, including now Kirkland. Not so much on earnings, but the reserves. Agnico Eagle didn't do particularly well. So I think the opportunity is in the little guys. The opportunity is in some guy who's already got, let's say, 1 million ounces of something at 5 or 6 grams, and he can't scratch together 10 million to drill a little further. Well, I think they'll start getting the money now, and there could be some big opportunities there.
Yeah, no, that's right. And that's a good reason to listen every week. It's also a good reason to go to SprottMoney.com and add some physical metal to your stack the way things are moving. We, like I said, have got all-time highs in all these currencies, including the euro. Looks like it will be all-time highs in dollar terms before too long as well. So please stop by SprottMoney.com. You'll notice we are in the final week of our Sprott Signature Sale, something we do once a year. More than 25 different bullion products on sale. Take advantage of these great prices. Go to the deals page at SprottMoney.com. Or, again, just pick up the phone and give us a call. 888-861-0775 to get more info and to make your purchase. Eric, go get yourself some tea, some zinc, some vitamin C, all that kind of stuff. We need you in this fight. We've got to have you feeling better next week.
You think I know how to deal with this, right? I talk about it every week.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, you go take care of yourself. We'll talk to you next Friday.
Oh, that's great. Thanks.
And from all of us at Sprott Money News, SprottMoney.com. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you next week.